because I have never seen crime so rampant in my country. We've had revolutionary wars. They were political figures fighting for political causes. The drug lords in Mexico don't bother about this. They say, we are here to fuck you. We're here to be nasty. We're here to be criminals. Do not make a mistake. So this is a challenge to the society, a challenge to the government, and a challenge to each Mexican citizen.
And now, it gives me my great pleasure to welcome Carlos Fuentes to the stage.
Carlos Fuentes, one of Mexico's most famous living authors. His books helped launch a Latin American literary revolution in the 60s and 70s, bringing him fame and a kind of glamour. His life has been dedicated to writing. More than 30 novels, mining Mexico's history, culture, and politics.
Too often our human capital is wasted.
Fuentes is also a journalist and political commentator, an international mouthpiece, you could say, taking on some of Mexico's most difficult issues. On a recent speaking engagement in Toronto, one topic is raised more than any other,
which is the invasive strength of the drug trade.
The intense drug war in Mexico has been front and center and deadly. More than 40,000 people have been killed since the government decided to take on the drug cartels. President Felipe Calderón became the first to declare war after taking office 5 years ago, deploying the army in place of local police to enforce the law. Almost its own story is the grotesque level of violence. Mutilations, hangings, and beheadings, as though one gang is trying to outdo the other with ever grislier acts. This violent expression has seeped into Carlos Fuentes' recent books. He has also stepped out publicly, calling for a new approach, the provocative idea of legalizing drug use.
The kind of violence we've been seeing is breathtaking. I mean, severed heads and bodies being left near schools. As a writer, does it go beyond your imagination?
Oh, it does. I have a novel which is narrated by a head floating in the sea, cut off by the drug lords. So I have it in my own imagination. There it is. This is a talking head killed by these thugs. Let me add something else. Each one of us responding in the way we can. We're all feeling it. I don't think there's anybody outside society in Mexico that cannot be personally concerned with what is happening, because it's your life, it's your future, it's your work. What is going to happen to all of this?
But there's an anger there.
Oh, there's an anger, of course. There's very angry. We're very angry, unhappy with the situation, and we feel it has to change.
So what mark would you give President Calderón for his efforts so far?
He's failed. He's failed. It is a failed policy. 2 weeks after becoming president, he declared war on the drug cartels, and the drug cartels declared war on him. So it's an open warfare which, out of each 3 battles, the government wins 1 battle and the drug lords win 3. That is a failing proposition, a failed proposition. So I think we should look for other ways. Take one example. Why is everybody who takes drugs and is captured taken to a jail? Many of them should be taken to a hospital, not to a jail. The end is that drugs should be legitimate. They should be prescribed or whatever, taken by, but they should not be the object of criminal action as they are right now.
What are your worst fears for your country?
For my country? It is the lack of government, the lack of authority, the loss of authority. And if the government and public office loses authority, you're giving it to criminals. Criminals will take over, and that is their aim.
Despite the mounting violence and its terrible headlines, maybe because of them, Fuentes is eager to talk about the plenty that is good about Mexico. The country is more democratic than ever and younger than ever. Almost half the population is under 30, he says, and full of promise. To hear Fuentes talk about Mexico's youth, he could easily be talking about Arab countries, where this year a spirited and restive youth brought down dictatorships.
It's fascinating to hear you talk about Mexico's youth. 50 million, correct?
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of the Middle East and of North Africa. I mean, I was in Libya and in Egypt and met some of those people who for years have been frustrated. I mean, in a way, they present an opportunity. What happens if Mexico misses this opportunity?
It'll be terrible. You know, these extraordinary men and women I meet everywhere, and I ask them, why did you leave Mexico? And I said, because we had a political boss who denied us justice, who raped our women, who did not give us education, did not give us anything, exploited us terribly, or because there were no opportunities in my region in Mexico. For all these reasons, they left and they enriched the life of Canada and the United States. We want to keep them in Mexico. We want them to come back. We want them to create communities in Mexico.
Mexico and Brazil have been a bit
Fuentes sees himself as a fierce defender of the Mexican identity. But there's a sense of charm and humor, too.
I dream in Spanish. I eat and drink and make love in Spanish, as my wife can tell you so.
And yet Fuentes is not without sadness. He lost 2 of his children, a son who died from complications of hemophilia, and a daughter reportedly from a drug overdose.
The biggest loss you have is the loss of the people you love. That is what affects you most, your father, your mother, your children, and that it goes deep into your soul very much, very much. And the rest is secondary to that. I've been very fortunate in having a lovely wife whom I love very much. There's the flip side of pain. But these are the basic things of life.
For longevity, it's hard to beat the career of Carlos Fuentes. From the young writer who rocked the literary world to a man in his 80s whose energy appears boundless, he continues to write at a relentless pace. For the Mexico he loves, there could hardly be a more passionate champion. Nahlah Ayed, CBC News, Toronto.